Hello there, good evening. Welcome to Look North, our top story tonight. After weeks of speculation, the Prime Minister confirms HS2 won't head north, with some politicians here saying it's a backward step.
There are already spades in the ground for HS2. There is already a bill going through Parliament that will be paused. We are going backwards, not forwards.
The PM has pledged a raft of other transport improvements in the north, but some of it's been promised before. Are you convinced?
We're promised a million things and it never happens, and we're trying to get places, but it doesn't always happen, does it?
If there's any money to spend, then yes, spend it in Bradford.
Also tonight, the number of graduates training to be teachers has fallen sharply. It's thought pay and conditions are partly to blame. And a Yorkshire Hedgehog rescue say they're overwhelmed with these prickly patients and are appealing for your help.
Well, there's been quite a bit of cloud today. That said, they're in Mythenroyd, a little bit of blue sky. A lot of cloud tomorrow. There is some patchy rain on the way. Join me for the very latest.
Hello there, thanks for your company this evening. New railway stations for Bradford and Rotherham, upgraded road links and £2.5 billion committed to a tram scheme for West Yorkshire. The Prime Minister has officially scrapped the HS2 rail project. Today he announced Network North to reinvest the £36 billion in transport projects in the north of England. Now, under the plans, journey times will be reduced. It will take 30 minutes to get from Bradford to Manchester, a saving of around 25 minutes. And Sheffield to Manchester will be 9 minutes faster, with a journey taking 42 minutes due to upgrading and electrifying the Hope Valley line. The Don Valley line between Sheffield and Stocksbridge will also be reopened under the Prime Minister's plans. Our transport correspondent Spencer Stokes has been looking into the details.
It's 2 years since plans to bring HS2 to Yorkshire were cancelled. Now the western leg from Birmingham to Manchester has gone as well. £36 billion that would have been spent on that route will be divided between smaller transport schemes. The big standout one in our region, a brand new railway station for Bradford with upgraded lines linking it to Huddersfield in just 12 minutes, Manchester in half an hour. But the council leader has been down this track before.
Things have changed in government several times over the last few years, and now I need to see some action. I need to see some money to actually deliver some of this, some studies to make sure we can actually put the infrastructure in, spades in the ground, because we think we can do this 10 years' time.
A new station for Bradford was first announced when Boris Johnson became Prime Minister in 2019. But when HS2's eastern leg was scrapped, so was the plan for Bradford's rail infrastructure. A year later, Liz Truss resurrected the idea, saying she would build it, before Rishi Sunak then cancelled it a month later. He too has now reversed his own policy and committed to a new station and upgraded lines out of the city in his speech today.
You will be able to get from Manchester to the new station in Bradford in 30 minutes.
Absolutely fantastic. That'd be brilliant.
I think it's a brilliant idea, but I don't believe it.
I think normally it takes about an hour, so it's more convenient, you get there quicker.
To get to Manchester?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
If there's any money to spend, then yes, spend it in Bradford.
Bradford isn't the only place promised a new station. Stocksbridge will be connected to the rail network using the freight line down the Don Valley. And there'll be a new mainline station in Rotherham. Haxby near York will get a station, but the council will have to part fund it. And a commitment to a West Yorkshire tram network with 7 routes. Planning on that scheme is already underway, with some government money pledged. Electrification of lines appears to be a government priority once again, with Sheffield to Leeds and Sheffield to Manchester promised wires. That should deliver faster services between the cities. But one rail expert is scathing.
Re-announcements of projects that should have been long delivered, if not at least being built, stuff that's already been cancelled, being uncancelled. But the main problem is that HS2 is the whole point of HS2 is that it unlocks capacity on the existing railway network for better services. That vital infrastructure that HS2 delivered is not going to be delivered.
Alongside rail schemes, the government says there could be road bypasses at Shipley near Bradford and Hickleton near Doncaster, and an extension of the £2 bus fare. A long list of plans, but like HS2, how much will see the light of day? Spencer Stokes, BBC Look North.
Tracy Brabin, the Mayor for West Yorkshire, has called the scrapping of HS2 a betrayal of the North, and she joins me now. Isn't this good news, Tracy Brabin? There's a new station announced for Bradford, reduced journey times on trains, a new bypass, West Yorkshire Transit Plan, funding for £2 bus fares. If you had a wish list, these things would be on it, wouldn't they?
Well, we can always celebrate new money, but the problem is we don't know and we can't trust this government to deliver. We have been promised so much. For the 2 years that I've been the Mayor of West Yorkshire, I just don't feel that there is the commitment from this government to actually deliver. Northern Powerhouse Rail, for example, has been promised over 60 times. It's been in 3 Conservative Party manifestos, and we had a Prime Minister in Manchester saying we were going to get it.
So as the Mayor for West Yorkshire, what are you going to do to make sure that the government does deliver on this?
Exactly. So I'm meeting the other mayors. You know that we work collectively for the good of the North. I'm going to be speaking to businesses and to government about having at least being in the room, because I was told in a 10-minute meeting with the Secretary of State for Transport what was going to happen to us. We've not been consulted. We know we have a plan for the North. We have a plan for this connected network.
But does this not expand your plan more? 36 billion, Rishi Sunak says, that would have been spent on HS2 is now going to be used on better transport systems in the North.
Well, the 36 billion is spread across the country. The £2 fare for buses, we can't forget that here in West Yorkshire, we were the first to deliver that.
But it's going to be extended, isn't it, indefinitely?
Yes, but the government called us to understand how we were doing it and extended indefinitely. Currently, we are paying the operators in order to deliver £2 because we were the first to do it. We're going to be.
But if you're saying that, is that not the government listening to the mayors?
Well, in a way, they understand that in a cost of living crisis, what the mayors were doing, because they know their communities, they know what is needed, what we are delivering, we're getting on with the work. They understand that there are good things coming out of devolution, which is why it's so frustrating, Amy, that we are not in the room. We're just being told from Whitehall and Westminster what is happening to us here in the North. It does not solve that capacity issue. And also the connection between Birmingham, Manchester and Manchester and Leeds. We know businesses have told us that this is really important for growth, and I don't think government are listening.
But if we just look at HS2, the Prime Minister said it's double the price and it's going to be another 2 decades. That doesn't solve the problems here and now, does it? Whereas this plan is a much shorter plan and it actually tackles a lot more things.
But let's not forget, this plan that was announced today will need consultations, will need business plans, will be beyond the next election. There are already spades in the ground for HS2. There is already a bill going through Parliament that will be paused. We are going backwards, not forwards.
Tracy Brabin, thank you. The Prime Minister made his announcement at the Conservative Party conference in Manchester. Our political editor watched the speech. He's live for us now. James, what did you make of it all?
Well, we all knew what the headline was going to be here in Manchester. Everybody was trying to work out what would come next. So I said this morning that Rishi Sunak would have to do a very good job of selling what he was going to announce if he was going to cancel HS2. He did cancel HS2. I guess time will tell whether he did a good enough job to sell it. But I was watching what he said and trying to get some reaction from some of our MPs.
After days of waiting, the home crowd kind of knew what their Prime Minister was going to say, but they wanted to know what was coming in its place.
This map at the entrance of the Conservative Party conference shows next year's constituencies, the new ones. At the moment, they're all blue, but that might depend on exactly what the Prime Minister is promising.
And in Manchester, in a former railway station, HS2 in the north was no more.
I am cancelling the rest of the HS2 project. And in its place, we will reinvest every single penny, £36 billion, in hundreds of new transport projects in the North and the Midlands across the country.
Instead, the money spent across the North. Network North.
Including the Bradford district. You know, that was specifically mentioned in the speech, which was great to hear Bradford Station coming to light again.
HS2 has always been one of those Marmite projects. This is what, instead of us just being able to get to Manchester to Birmingham quicker, this is going to spread the wealth across the north, all the small little projects that people wanted doing.
It means Labour might have to spend their conference facing some similar teasers.
The big question for Labour is, would you do HS2? Would you do HS2 in full and Northern Powerhouse Rail?
I think the Labour Party's been clear. I don't speak for the Labour Party in Westminster, but the Labour Party's been clear from day one. We are supportive of HS2 and Northern Powerhouse Rail in full. For the government now, after 13 years, to suddenly realise that there's a crisis of local transport in the north of England is frankly laughable.
You guys have been in power for 13 years. How can you be the government of change?
We've changed many things for the better in that time. We know we've got a lot of work to do over the next 12 months, and people will judge us by our actions, not by our words.
Thank you.
Perhaps it's job done with MPs, but voters will want to know when all of this will happen. Some of those schemes have already been talked about for longer than you've known the phrase HS2.
What this does do now is give Labour a bit of a headache in terms of their conference. They're going to get the same questions Rishi Sunak got ahead of his conference. Will they back HS2? If they were elected, will they bring it back to Manchester, potentially back to Sheffield and Leeds? That's the questions for the next few days. But of course, with Rishi Sunak's party behind in the polls, it's quite easy to promise a lot of transport projects in the north if you might not win the next general election.
Our political editor James Vincent there with that report. Let's move away from HS2 now and bring you some other stories coming into our newsroom. A man accused of murdering his two housemates in the Hare Hills area of Leeds has appeared in court. 46-year-old Robert Jean appeared at Leeds Magistrates Court after being charged with the murders of Abdullah Mirzada and Kaja Reis Oddin Mohammed. Both men were found injured at their home in Hilltop Mount on Saturday evening and died a short time later. Jean will now appear at Leeds Crown Court on Friday. A teenager from Huddersfield has been charged with the murder of two men who were stabbed in Halifax. Joshua Clark, aged 21, and Haydar Shah, aged 19, died in hospital after police were called to reports of three men being assaulted in Commercial Street on Sunday. 19-year-old Rashane Douglas has been charged with 2 counts of murder, attempted murder and possession of an offensive weapon. Next tonight, increasing workload, inflexible hours and stress. These are just some of the reasons that teachers are leaving the profession and fewer people are choosing to go into teaching as a career. Now in Yorkshire, the number of students opting for a postgraduate education course has dropped by a quarter in the last 3 years. Heidi Tomlinson has been investigating.
In forest schools, we're always trying to, with children, make lots of things with the wood and fasten things together. So we need a really good knot.
A forest school lecture at Leeds Beckett University where trainee teachers are learning how to plan outdoor activities.
Move along my string, do exactly the same again, so I make a cross.
Students here are certain about their career choice.
Get to stand in front of a classroom and see the faces and teach them something new, something that they might not have had the opportunity to learn about before. It's really rewarding.
Seeing the children learning around you and seeing them enjoy a lesson you plan, it makes you definitely think, yeah, this is what I want to do.
However, there's been a dip in the number of young people enrolling onto teaching courses. According to the Department of Education, between 2019 and 2020, just over 3,000 people in Yorkshire and the Humber applied to do a postgraduate certificate of education. That dropped to 2,300 in the last academic year. Using GCSE maths calculations, we can see that's a drop of 26% in 3 years, which in our region is a steeper decline than the national average. Meanwhile, the number of vacant or temporarily filled teaching jobs continues to increase. So why are more and more teachers turning their backs on the careers that they trained for?
Since the pandemic, I think a lot of people can now work from home. They can have more of these flexible options. They're not having to spend money or time on travel, and that's never going to be the case with teaching. I'm going to empty my cubes. I want you to calmly find the right number of cubes.
At Halifax Academy, flexible working has become a priority to retain staff. Reception teacher Kelda Hardwick starts later so she can do the school run before work.
I have a lot of friends who are parents who have these flexible working options, who are able to work from home. They're able to have their hours moved around to different times of the day to fit in around the family. And I think now teaching offers more of that. It's fantastic, and I'll certainly now stay.
We've really tried to embrace flexible working practices and procedures and been recently designated a flexible working and ambassadors school, and that's really aimed at trying to address some of the challenges around the recruitment and retention issues that education faces currently, looking at what a post-pandemic world looks like for education and really attracting to younger graduates who might be able to get a different type of package on offer from other professions.
String, long bit in one hand, keep your other hand still.
Back at uni, trainee teachers are well aware of the alternatives and the pressures.
It's easier to just do a 9-to-5 job and get paid a bit more than it is to do teaching, because it's not 9-to-5 in any way.
That hasn't put you off?
No, I love it, absolutely love it.
Heidi Tomlinson, BBC Look North.
Earlier I spoke to Laura McInerney, the CEO of TeacherTap. That's a survey app that asks daily questions to thousands of teachers about their experiences inside schools. I asked Laura why we were seeing less people going in to train to be teachers.
When it comes to training, it's very expensive. So it's another year of student loans, as well as having to cover living costs. And we can see that teachers and anybody, trainees as well, their costs are going up for their housing, for their food. And then you have to travel to get to school. Over 80% of teachers drive, which means the cost of cars you have to cover. We know that's going up, plus fuel, plus insurance. It's simply getting very squeezed, and people are thinking, why spend that money? Why not go and train and do something else?
For many people, teaching is a real passion, isn't it? So when they do qualify, what issues are they facing?
Well, lots of people do love their jobs, but it is very challenging. So you've got the issues of planning lessons, delivering them, standing on your feet all day. And what we're seeing is increasingly teachers feel that the challenges of behaviour, of mental health, of special educational needs, which are all things they want to help with, but they don't have the resources available. And so they need more funds or more services to deal with that so that they can get on with the lessons. Otherwise, they are starting to feel defeated and don't see themselves staying in the profession long enough.
Should parents be worried by the lack of people wanting to enter the teaching profession?
I think we should all be worried that if we have people who are in the profession who are often not teaching subjects that they've trained for example, someone who may not have done maths since they were 16, being put in to do maths A-levels, or people who say they want to leave the profession but are just simply stuck there, are in those classrooms when somebody else more enthusiastic could come in. We should all worry about that, because it will mean there is less good quality teaching going on, and we need that for the next generation.
Laura, thank you. Let's move to the seaside now. People in Scarborough are getting the chance to have their say on plans to change the West Pier. The £11 million proposals have been described by the council as a once-in-a-generation opportunity, but questions have been asked over the impact it will have on people in the fishing industry. Beth Parsons has more.
This stretch of the Yorkshire coast has been home to fishermen for hundreds of years. In fact, Scarborough is the second biggest harbour for lobster in Europe. North Yorkshire Council plans to revamp the historic West Pier. It'll include a new restaurant, outdoor event space, new kiosks, toilets and parking, alongside better facilities for the people who fish here.
The scaffold here is holding the walkway up, and it's been here for 2 years. We've got leaks falling on all our equipment, our electrical pumps and stuff like that, so, you know, we're desperate for it to happen.
Sean's family have been running a fishmongers on the pier since the 70s.
The West Pier, nothing's been spent here. For 45 years, it's not fit for purpose, and we desperately need facilities to hold our shellfish in better conditions, but the facilities here are shocking.
Scarborough is predominantly crab and lobster.
But not everyone agrees that the plans are right. Fred's been fishing here all his life.
Well, there's no question that the harbour needs refurbishment. This pier needs refurbishment. But the whole harbour needs refurbishment. It's collapsing over there, it's collapsing down here. That's where the money, in my opinion, needs spending, the infrastructure. But yes, this pier needs doing, and some of the plans are good. But isn't it like getting new deck chairs for the Titanic? If the ship's going to sink, what's the point in doing this?
Other concerns include the lack of a boat hoist like this one in Bridlington, how vulnerable the pier is to harsh weather conditions and flooding, plus the fact that the money being used is from the town's deal fund awarded to Scarborough 2 years ago. But why is it being used here not the town centre.
The Townsdale Fund was provided to Scarborough. It was over £20 million to invest in schemes that will really see improvements to the local area. There are schemes all across Scarborough, and the harbour is just one of those. It is one of the major investments, taking around about £6 million of that Townsdale Fund and a total of £11 million of investment within this area.
People were invited to see the plans today, and there are more opportunities in the Town Hall tomorrow and the Market Hall on Saturday. Opinions can also be shared online, but time is running out. The consultations are open until the 13th of October. Beth Parsons, BBC Look North, Scarborough.
Now it's getting a bit more autumnal, isn't it? Hedgehogs, look at them, how cute are they, are beginning to think about bedding down for the winter to hibernate. But some who haven't been so healthy over the summer have ended up at the Haxby Hedgehog Hospital in York. They're now fundraising to cope with the rising number of these little lovelies and to insulate the garage hospital to keep the little ones warm. Carla Fowler has been to see them.
When Herbert the hedgehog first arrived here, he was partially bald.
You going home tomorrow?
His spines had fallen out because he was sick with ringworm. Without the antibiotics, food and care he's had here at Haxby Hedgehog Hospital, he wouldn't have survived. Herbert is one of 9 hogs currently being cared for by Sarah Dixon, who's having to turn away new arrivals.
My capacity, technically speaking, is 6. So yeah, it's been a busy year. Generally speaking, you find that things trail off in August. Once the first wave of babies have been born, it gets a bit quieter. It hasn't done that this year. It's been juveniles all the way through. It's been really full.
Autumn has seen a sharp rise in young hoglets admitted. So wriggling under this blanket are actually 2 orphaned hoglets, George and Mildred. And we have George here, who is 6 weeks old and was found locally. So he needs to put on weight and get to a good solid weight before he can be released back where he was found, don't you, George? And you beautiful. Sarah runs the hospital from her garage whilst also being a full-time working mum. Treating infections, keeping the hedgehogs warm and feeding them is demanding and expensive work.
This is pain relief, this little bottle here. That little bottle cost over £90. So yep, it's vital, absolutely vital. So they can be wandering around with a broken leg or a cut or something, and they come in and it's infected, and they're in a really poorly way, so they need help. I think that's one message if I could give it would be, if you see a hedgehog out in the day, it's not okay and it needs help.
A GoFundMe has now been set up to insulate the garage so that more little patients will survive the coming winter. Carla Fowler, BBC Look North, Haxby.
Oh my gosh, they're so sweet, aren't they? Hedgehogs must be so confused at the moment because it's hibernation season, but it's warm. Should be sunbathing.
I was just going to say that. I mean, this weekend and early next week, 21 degrees. It's been the warmest September on record. Have I told you that statistic? I think you've
bored us with it a few times.
Yes, I've bored you with
now.
that. Well, let me bore you with these pictures because they're really nice. Riveroo's, bit of autumn coming through there. There's a lot of leaves there on the path by the river, and this one's beautiful. Now, I think this is a Rochdale Canal. I'm sure you'll tell me if it's not, but that's Ludden Foot. No sign actually of the leaves there turning yellow. That's assuming that was taken this morning. You can never tell. If you've got any pictures, you can send them to me on Twitter, Instagram, or on the Weather Watcher website. So for the next 24 hours, 36 hours, we're looking at a lot of cloud coming in from the Atlantic. Tomorrow will be rather cloudy. There'll be some patchy rain, especially later in the day. There could be a bit earlier than that. But these weather fronts are flirting with us over the next couple of days. A bit of patchy rain Friday morning too. But the front does get out of the way. We do pull up that warmer air from the south. But there will be areas of cloud this weekend. It ain't going to be clear blue skies all weekend, but it's fine and it's warm. And if you look at the average temperatures for October, around 14, we're looking at 21, 22 over the weekend, so it's very nice indeed. So as we head into this evening, we'll still see quite a bit of cloud, especially in the west, with a bit of patchy rain, especially over the Pennines further east. It looks dry with clear spells, and we'll see minimum overnight temperatures around 11 or 12 degrees. So tomorrow's high water times, not too bad along the coast again, Filey at 8:56. So some brightness, especially in the east at first, but it's rather cloudy, bit of patchy rain in the morning, otherwise it's dry. But there's that weather front bringing rain bodily in from the west through the afternoon. So a bit of a dreary affair, especially over the hills. The wind will pick up as well. We're looking at top afternoon temperatures ranging from 15 to 17 degrees. 17 Celsius in Old Money is 63 degrees Fahrenheit. Friday then, another rather cloudy day, breezy, a little rain at first, brighter later, and then the weekend temperatures topping out on Saturday. Might be a bit optimistic, 23, but it's a lovely, fine and warm autumnal weekend, and that lasts into early next week. That's the forecast.
It's hard to know what to wear, isn't it, in this weather? Because the sun's quite a lot lower. There's a bit of cloud, but there's a bit of sun. Is it shorts or is it jeans?
I'm a good weather forecaster, not so good at fashion, so I'll leave.
We know that. Yeah. That's it from us. Corinne's here with your late news. Bye-bye for now.